What is up, folks, and welcome to episode 8 of the Digital Dopamine podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about Obsidian, a specific knowledge-based tool that has blown my mind, quite honestly, after testing it out and using it for about a week as of now. So I haven't gotten my hands super dirty with it, but I've played around with it enough to know that 100% will be sticking with this as my knowledge base, and we'll be getting away from Notion indefinitely. I don't see a reason for me to use Notion at all moving forward. So you might be wondering why I was looking for a new tool to be more productive, or at least get back into being more productive. There's some news that came out not too long ago in mid-April. If you are a friend or family member of mine, you definitely know already. But if you aren't, the news is Cars.com, or as they're called now, Cars Commerce, went through a mass layoff in the middle of April. They laid off about 11% of their staff, and I did not miss the stray this time around. But with the whole Cars layoff, I'm looking at this as a new chapter. It's kind of forcing my hand to do some deep soul searching and figuring out exactly how I want to move forward. Do I want to continue the job hunt that has been garbage and unsuccessful lately, or do I want to shift focus on my side business, my brand, Digital Dopamine? That ultimately would be what would make me happy. It's just that how do I fund those ventures? And I have a little bit of funds now. It's just a matter of time until they are depleted, though, when it comes to rent and eating, and then with inflation and all this other garbage going on in the world. I digress again. But looking for these tools to help me get out of my funk that I was in, to keep me productive and keep me on task, I need this type of structure. So after going through a bunch of other tools like LocArk, Joplin, just to name a couple, there's a handful more that I tested out as well, but we'll get into why Obsidian fulfilled all my, I guess, needs and wants in terms of an app for a note-taking app and a knowledge-based app, as well as what surprised me with Obsidian. But just to touch on memos really quick before we dive into it in more depth, and I show you guys how to get it installed on your local machine. Memos is a self-hosted note-taking timeline. So it resembles the likes of Blue Sky or a Facebook feed in terms of the UI design, but it's just like a quick time-stamped markdown note section. So the text box area is completely markdown capable. So you can use Markdown within that text. When you post, it's going to show your post in as the most recent post in the timeline, but it'll have actual code snippets if you did if you use the specific syntax for code snippets in Markdown. It'll have titles, headers, links, image capabilities, video capabilities. It's a pretty cool tool that you can use, and it's all ran locally, and the data doesn't again leave your system, and it's more so a great I would say cliff note type tool, to where if you needed to jot down something really quick as you were reading an article, or if you had a quick idea that you wanted to make sure you didn't forget about, you can jot that down. And Memos doesn't have a mobile version, but we do have a workaround, so we'll get into the workaround as well. But we'll talk about that a little bit more later when we get Memos working on your local machine, and then we work on getting it working on your mobile device as well. So that leads us to what I'm leaning into, and that is AI engineering specifically. So now we have a bunch of instances to where companies are hiring devs that are offshore and getting rid of the American devs, only to have the offshore devs use AI. And that's what people are worried about. They're saying we're losing our jobs to AI, but most of the time people are losing their jobs to offshore people that use AI. That's a problem with the company. There are other companies though that aren't doing offshore hires, but they are hiring other people from America that decides to use these tools over, an old worker that they might have been there for 5, 6, 7 years. They don't want to use AI because it's not a part of their workflow and they don't want to adapt. They're the ones that are going to get replaced by other American workers that do use AI frequently or solely to work on code or work on product design or building or what have you. And my thought process is like, there is no avoiding it. AI is not going anywhere. I've mentioned this multiple times before. And if we need to figure out a way to do this ethically, we can. And there are avenues for that, which is why I'm such a big fan of Gemma 4 and then all the open weight models in general. Gemma 4 is not the only one. I've done a little bit more research on other open weight models, and while my machine can't really handle them, they are still really good models for bigger companies that can have servers and they can offer that free AI service to their customers. The only downside is with those, you still have to have those server farms, which still is a decent impact on the environment depending on where those data centers are located. Now, I looked into a handful of options to try to upskill and become an actual AI engineer. And by AI engineer, I'm talking building these actual AI agents, working with the logic of implementing them into existing products that don't have AI involved, working on understanding LLMs, things of that nature. So I'm going through Hugging Face's courses. They have a free course on their website about LLMs as well as creating agents and working with generative agents. So I'm going through that process of learning and upskilling, and then I'm planning on taking a proctored exam from Databricks. They offer an AI engineering associate certificate, and this one in particular is definitely well known and I would say more recognized by the industry because it's a proctored exam, and it holds a little bit more weight than, let's say, doing a AI class on Codecademy or Coursera. Those, while they will teach you some things, they might be a little dated, and they also, again, might not hold as much weight as the Databricks certification. But moving on from my plan of upskilling and leaning into AI, Obsidian is going to be a great testing ground to experiment with a lot of these things. And I'm talking specifically with Ollama and Gemma 4. Obsidian has an Ollama plugin. It's on version 0.01. It's on version 0.0.1. So it's just like the dev kind of abandoned it. They did a build for this plugin, put it in the marketplace, left it alone. It doesn't not work, but I don't really see too much of a use case in my day-to-day. So there might be an opportunity for me to adapt that plugin, like fork it on GitHub and then build out or extend it and maybe make that an open source project that I work on. But I'm gonna look into that a little bit further. Nonetheless, I will say though that working with Ollama and open code as well as using the Gemma 4 models, that is actually going to unlock a lot of possibilities for me working with both Memos and Obsidian, because Obsidian's file structure and software structure is heavily Markdown based. So a lot of the vaults, so the vaults is an actual folder, and things in the vault, files, documents, if it can be Markdown in terms of text and notes, those are all Markdown. Otherwise, it's images and it's JSON files for configuration and things like that. So I can have my open code agent run through existing Markdown files, make updates to those Markdown files, and that will in turn get updated on the actual Obsidian app without the app actually even being open, because it just reads those Markdown files. And then that in turn transfers to my mobile device because I'm using iCloud Sync, and that's where my folder for Obsidian lives. So all of this connectivity is kind of is really interesting, and I'm very impressed that I was able to find these outlets and these ways of note taking and having a knowledge base both on my home machine as well as being able to access it via phone. Because if I have an idea that I want to jot down on my trip somewhere, or if I'm commuting, I want to be able to not have to have my local machine with me or have another completely brand new or separate vault on my MacBook. I will being able to access the same exact folder for Obsidian if I'm working on a specific node or a different, connecting a different project and planning using the Kanban board and all that. I can do the same exact thing on my phone. And then when it comes to using memos and working with this workaround app called Tailscale, I can actually access that my local IP from my phone and still utilize memos on the go and still update it, and everything's in sync. So it's just, these tools in particular are all three of them work so well together, and I'm pretty excited to see how they grow as I'm starting to do more research and starting to do more projects within these applications and products. So just to dive a little bit into Obsidian and exactly what it has to offer, you felt me geeked out. You saw me geek out about it, right? So let's actually take a peek and just get into the weeds a little bit to see what it has to offer. The sheer scope of plugins available for Obsidian is mind-boggling to me in terms of the extensibility for it. And there's no way I can actually cover all of those plugins in this one episode. There's no way I want to cover all of those plugins in this one episode, but I'm going to cover a couple of the important ones that I use and plan to use on my day-to-day. And the main, I would say, feature for Obsidian that I was interested in, and then a lot of apps seems like are taking this concept and doing this more often themselves too, is the whole vault concept. So Obsidian has a vault concept that kind of encapsulates the entirety of what Obsidian is capable of. I wouldn't say what it's capable of, but like the structure of it. Each vault is just your workspace within Obsidian, and everything lives. So like I said, everything lives in a folder. The vaults are folders, and it lives on the machine. Plain Markdown files live within that vault, within that folder. And that's it. There's no proprietary formatting. There's no data stored on AWS or Google Cloud servers anywhere because of the company, using them as their cloud provider. If Obsidian disappeared tomorrow, I still have all of my notes because they're all just Markdown files, fully readable, and I can import them into any other software that accepts Markdown files, which makes, in my opinion, Obsidian the perfect tool to use because it doesn't lock me in. It's just not saying, hey, if you start using our stuff, you're going to have to have a long time rebuilding your whole knowledge base and everything if you decide to leave our product. And I really hate that when it comes to like the dev world. And Obsidian, I think they did a really good job in staying true to the software engineering concept of code needing to be shareable and open source for the most part. Like I get proprietary knowledge and things like that in IP, but when it comes to like tools like this and learning and knowledge bases and trying to build up, what they have is you can build up a wiki, you can kind of create your own Wikipedia page of your own research and stuff like that. What they have available now for free is a very, I think, important concept that companies should do more of. They do offer options that require a paid subscription. So if you want to do Obsidian Sync and not work with iCloud or anything like that, you could do their sync option, but you just have to have their pro membership. Nonetheless, I am obsessed with the logic and the structure of Obsidian because of how versatile, or how versatile it is, one, two, how open it is, and I'm not locked in. So that makes me happy. And you can have a bunch of vaults as well. So you can have mini vaults, some vaults dedicated to AI stuff, some vaults dedicated to your side business, some vaults dedicated to just personal day-to-day life stuff. It's very, very customizable in that front. And then like I had mentioned earlier, how I keep things in sync is through iCloud Drive, and there are steps in order to set that up. I'm not gonna go through the steps on the video, but I do have it in the article. And the article, if you go take a read, it'll run you through exactly how you would get Obsidian set up within your iCloud Drive. That way it's synced via all of your Apple devices. Now, granted, this is only an Apple thing, and if you have a Windows, it might not be as easy to have this free option for syncing up your vaults for all your devices, but I'm sure there's other workarounds for Windows and Linux users as well. Now, when it comes to, again, everything Obsidian, it's Markdown first always. Everything in Obsidian is Markdown. If you're a developer and you don't already write in Markdown, you're gonna learn to love it really fast. Headers, code blocks, callouts, tables, checkboxes, it all renders beautifully in preview mode. Same goes for memos. Both of them use Markdown for most of the note-taking and knowledge base that you're building. So it just makes both of these applications kind of one-in-one and very extensible. And because it's just Markdown files underneath the hood, the notes themselves are version control friendly too. So you can just throw the vault, your folder, in a Git repo, and now you have history for your entire knowledge base. And you can see here on the screen, I'm showing a way for you to get your folder up and add it to GitHub. You're going to need to use GitHub CLI in order to log in and actually push your project properly. But it's straightforward. You just need to brew install the GitHub CLI, and then you log in, and then you go ahead and use these commands to push your folder and your vault up to GitHub. And if you don't have a GitHub account, just go to GitHub and create one. It's as simple as creating an account for any other, modern website. So another feature, or another, I would say, plus that Obsidian offers are backlinks and internal linking. And this is the feature that will most likely be the catalyst in how my notes and docs are evolved in a better sense. So I guess I mean that in terms of my note taking is going to get better, I think, due to this feature, and it's going to make the connectivity between all of my documentations and my projects and everything, research and resources, going to make that a lot easier to kind of pinpoint and store within a nice, good UI. So in order to show or add backlinks in Obsidian, you just need to throw double brackets, and then the text in there is what will be the header on the new note that you have. So let's say you have an existing note called new note. You would do double brackets, and within the double brackets, you would do the word new note. It will automatically pop up and show you that here's the thing you're going to link. If you have it already, if it's already exists. If it doesn't exist, it's just going to create that new note for you. And then you can add things to that new note after you decide to, get the content in there. Very simple. Every note shows you a list of every other note that links to it automatically as well. So no manual cross-referencing. You start building a web of connected knowledge without a need for heavy configuration or reliance on other plugins. Another thing that was just cool, I don't see too much of a use case for it right now. I'm sure it's just going to be a good visual in terms of how my knowledge base grows, but the graph view is pretty cool. It pretty much renders a visual map of all of your notes and how they connect to each other. And as your vault grows, this thing becomes a sprawling network of nodes, and it just feels good to look at how everything connects with each other. And there's a render button that they have in here to where it'll re-render all the connected nodes. So it'll start from the first one you created, if let's say you have a huge brain of like connected nodes, you do the re-render, you can see a cool animation of it starting from the very first node and everything just starting to branch out and expand. So just like a cool visual, nothing that I think that is making me more productive. It's just good to see that in place. Then there is Canvas. Canvas, I haven't used it yet myself, so I'm just kind of going to read through what Canvas is in terms of Obsidian's description. Canvas is Obsidian's infinite whiteboard feature, and it's built right in. You can drag notes, images, cards, and web links onto a free-form board and arrange them however your brain needs them arranged. So in terms of mapping out AI learning paths, I plan on using it for that. Haven't done it yet. Laying out topics, drawing connections between those concepts, and then dropping in reference notes. So that might be useful. I have to test it out and try it myself and see if it is useful. But they say think of Miro or FigJam, but local first and totally free. Then there's other ones that I'm kind of going to go through. Well, just really quickly, there's templates, there's the command palette and hotkeys, which is normal for most applications, and there are themes and appearances. Like those three didn't feel like it was needed to go in depth in terms of what they offer. They're kind of self-explanatory. And guess what? All of this for a good old free 99. So that's it. No, there's no subscriptions unless you want to do the Obsidian sync. But the baseline for Obsidian is insane, and it already clears the bar for most of what I was using with Notion. And now that I gave you the idea of what the core, offering for Obsidian is, that's a good segue into the plugin section, which pretty much throws Obsidian into the sphere of S tier. They, in my opinion, they're number one. For now, until I find another tool that might, one up them and nice and shiny for me to go ahead and check out. There's a bunch of core plugins outside of like just the base offerings, but they come automatically installed and added within Obsidian. I'm just gonna run through the titles. Feel free to go to Obsidian and look at the docs and figure out, a little bit more details on these. Some of them were already mentioned, but again, I'll go through them. So we have an audio recorder, backlinks, bases. I will talk about bases specifically because bases are you create custom views that let you edit, sort, and filter files using their specific properties. And the bases is a big proponent when it comes to the one plugin that I'm really using, going to be really using like every day for my Kanban board and my habit or my tracker, my task tracker, and it's just going to be that all in one. They use bases as their core logic for making all of these, I would say, tasks very flexible and filterable. So moving on, we got bookmarks, Canvas, command palette, daily notes, file recovery, files, footnotes, views, format converter, graph view, note composer, outgoing links, outline, page preview, property views, quick switcher, random notes, search, slash command, slides, sync, tag view, templates, unique, note creator, web viewer, word count, and workspaces. Those are all the core plugins automatically added to the application to then either enable or disable if you use them or not use them. I have been stressing that a lot of these core plugins are automatically going to be useful because they're automatically added. So they kind of come with the, again, baseline of what Obsidian offers. And because of some of these plugins were big enough, Obsidian decided to just adopt them as a core plugin. Lots of them, lots of core plugins, because they weren't nearly this tall when I was looking at some of the older tutorial videos for Obsidian, and they've just been growing. And then that leads us to the community plugins, which is wild. It gets even deeper. And there are a handful of community plugins, and I'm not going to talk about much of them. I have a handful installed, but most of them are more theme related and styling related in terms of like syntax highlighting and being able to read certain documents, being able to see and edit tables a little bit easier. So things like that, nothing crazy. But there is a Kanban board that I was going to use for my weekly scheduling and task tracking. But the last time this was updated was 2 years ago. Not that it seemed like it was having issues and it was buggy. A lot of it is the most downloaded Kanban board on the Obsidian marketplace. However, TaskNotes is a new word plugin that I came across from a video that I was watching to try to get up to date with like some cool things to do in Obsidian. And it's an insane plugin. Like honestly, and I'm not even talking about just plugins for Obsidian. I mean plugin in general. I haven't used a plugin I feel like this cool in a while. And not only is it really cool, the documentation for this plugin is fantastic. They have fantastic documentation. I mean, just look at this. So we have obviously the menu sidebar to get you to navigate to your destination, but there's just so much detail and a lot of their, I don't know who built this, but a lot of their explanations are pretty straightforward, but also very easy to understand. I just really think that this was a well thought out and built documentation app, or I wouldn't call it an app, but a documentation site. And the fact that this plugin is so thick, in my opinion, like I really give them respect. And this is just a really cool plugin. And I'm gonna stop geeking out about it. I'm gonna go into a quick little description of what I have in my script for TaskNotes. So TaskNotes is a bit of all-in-one type of plugin. It describes that their features include task organization, time tracking, and calendar integration features, but that's just scratching the surface. TaskNotes follows the one note per task principle, where each task lives as a separate markdown file with structured metadata in YAML front matter, and meaning that each and every task can be modified manually or by the coding agent. TaskNotes also provide multiple views for managing tasks and tracking productivity. Amongst these views is a Kanban board that works interchangeably with other notes in your vault. All task-focused views operate as .base files located in the TaskNotes views directory and require Obsidian's Bases core plugin to be enabled. So it's just an extension on Obsidian's Bases plugin. And I am very, very satisfied with this plugin. Again, the fact that each of the notes that are created are just markdown files as well just gives my coding agent access to make adjustments to it, so I don't have to go into the UI and manually make any note changes or task changes. I can actually have my AI run through the markdown files and do that all for me. Again, locally using Gemma 4 and open code, so using it for free, and the only cost, I should say free, the only cost I'm incurring is the power that my Mac Mini is using. So, as you can see, I'm already happy-go-lucky with a lot of this stuff, and I'm pretty confident that this is going to get me back on track in terms of being, on point. I need to get back on being on point, So, moving on, let's talk about our side pieces. So during the quest for finding Obsidian, landing on Obsidian, I came across memos, and there were, like I said, a handful of other apps that I was looking into that I thought might be good pairs with Obsidian. Memos ended up being the winner, and we'll dive into exactly what makes memos unique and useful for, I guess, what I'm trying to accomplish personally. Now, considering everything is added on a timeline in chronological order within memos, this is actually like the perfect tool for quick thoughts, ideas, notes from learning lessons, quick code snippets that I need to just jot down, or just scrolling dev forums and servers or Discord servers and come across maybe a reference that somebody wants to, or somebody posted in there, or some quick knowledge that somebody posted in there that I want to jot down and store locally. And we can do that easily with memos. So I might do a separate piece specifically on memos to go like deep into it, because I do think that it is a really cool piece of software. But we'll go through 6 dev use cases for it, and then we'll get into actually how to set it up on your local machine. So just the first one I'm going to state here is storing reusable code snippets and command line recipes. That's pretty straightforward, pretty useful for devs and engineers around the space. So that's the first one. And I'm just going to run through these. I don't know why I'm numbering them. So the first one is that. Second one, document bug investigations and troubleshooting steps. Third, record architecture decisions and technical trade-offs. Fourth, collect learning resources while exploring new technologies. Another one is track API endpoints, credentials, and configuration notes. And lastly is maintain personal development logs and TIL entries, so today I learned entries. So those are just a handful, and you can see the utility of the software. And when, like I said, when coupled with Obsidian, it becomes a great addition to the toolkit. The only catch is that there's no native mobile app, which we had already mentioned, but we've got to work around for that. Each instance of memos, however, is a Docker container locally, so it's not like you're running multiple containers. This is one container on your local machine, and it's actually required for you to use this tool. So let's walk through how we can get this container spun up on our machine with Docker, and then we'll dive into the workaround in order to allow you to access that same URL or IP via your mobile device. All right, guys, so now you can see on my screen, I have my Docker desktop app open, I have my terminal open, and I also have Tailscale open on the left-hand side. And don't worry about that for now. That's just up because I have it set up properly for my phone to access my local network or my local VPN. But after you get Docker installed, this is what you will see when you open up Docker. And the only thing you really need to do in order to get memos spun up as a Docker container is this command right here. So you'll do docker run d name memos, and then this is the part that was a little bit funky when I first did it. I only exposed the 5230 port, and I needed to expose the other port so that my mobile IP worked when I went to that URL and actually tried to update memos. But after you run this, you can check and see if memos is actually active by doing Docker logs memos, and that'll just show you here everything's running, and you can also access it locally. All right, and now we have the memo instance that we spun up locally, and you can see my timeline here. Again, you can add specific code, tasks, just normal text, headers, actual hashes to where it'll get you to connected properties, these, and then like I said, this code snippet here is created in TypeScript. If I were to go in and edit this, you can see that you have TypeScript as the language, and then it'll do the proper syntax highlighting for that. So all this is pretty cool. And even the tasks, or like the checkboxes, you're able to actually mark them as completed or not. So using memos is awesome. And like I said, I think it's going to be a really good addition to Obsidian. Now, with that being said, we need to get this spun up on our local, right? So that gets us back to this situation here. And I'll have exactly what needs to be done in order to obtain the capabilities to see this on your mobile device. But if you look at here on my script, I just kind of want to show you guys exactly what the steps are. So you would go to Tailscale, you would download it on your Mac. Then you will also go to the App Store, download it on the App Store, sign into the same account on both devices. And then back on your MacBook, in your root directory, all you would need to do is run Tailscale IP4 to get that specific IP. And then you'll use that IP for your custom VPN and whatnot to then access the URL that your Docker instance is located on, or exposed to, I should say. And with that being said, is port 5230. And then this is the URL that we would use to access that via our phone. We can still access it via the web browser. However, we still need to log in, yada, yada, yada. And it's just easier for us to just use localhost for our web browser. And then when we need to access it via mobile, we can use the IP and the port to access it. And you can see here, this is how it looks on a mobile device. I have a video that you can watch me scroll through, and it's just, look at that smile. All right, so it's just me showing the timeline of what I had not too long ago before adding a few more things. But yeah, it allows me to access and make updates via my phone. Now, if we go back to the memos here, I actually have it on my phone right now. So I'm gonna go and do an update and just say, let's do a header, call it update from phone. And then below, we'll just have some cool text. Hey, cool guy. Exactly what we'll do. And as you can see, after doing it on my phone through that IP and saving it, pushing it to my local instance of my Docker container, you can see that we have our update here. And I can even go in here and edit what I send via my phone. So this Memos is really, really freaking cool. So I highly recommend people looking into it if you were looking for something quick like this and maybe don't need anything crazy like Obsidian, and you just need a quick note-taking software that's local only. So highly recommend looking into it. It's really cool, and it's going to be a really good tool to use with Obsidian. So that about wraps it up, folks. Pretty straightforward. I haven't done anything really in Obsidian to show you guys an example of how things look, but while I have your attention on that, we can go back to my script, and you can see on the left hand side here, I have pretty much my different folders within my Vault, and I'm trying to organize this accordingly to where I have my freelance file, I have my digital dopamine folder, freelance folder, digital dopamine folder, my brag doc folder, my still processing podcast folder, which is a podcast for me and my homies. It's coming soon. We're still working on that. And this, I'm hoping, will build into something really, really useful that I might be able to template it and maybe source it out to other people that might want to adapt it. But yeah, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to most likely do another demo on Obsidian and Memos, but this will be related to a project that I would be working on. So it's going to be kind of me putting it all together using Gemma 4, utilizing Obsidian and Memos for my research and note-taking and my knowledge base for the project itself, and then kind of going through a little bit of the build process with that project. And the project itself is going to be the job tracker project that I have in the works. I have a public repo available right now on GitHub, but I need to do a little bit more, like I said, research in terms of how I want to build this out and how it's going to fit well in terms of my journey to get my new certification, as well as kind of up my portfolio with more AI related projects. So, but I appreciate y'all joining me, and hopefully you guys join for the next episode. But until next time, stay rooted. Peace.